Africa. Africa was once seen as the antidote of civilization, the heart of darkness. Centuries later, Africa remained ignored. It made news for its conflict, poverty, and exclusivism. For the longest time, the world saw Africa as a lost continent. Then, one country saw opportunity and began a new race for Africa, not very different from the scramble of the 19th century when colonial France and Britain wanted raw material, slavery, and geopolitical influence. Now, in the 21st century, global powers are in more or less the same race. China, United States, India, Japan, Israel, Canada, all of these countries are in for the race for Africa, and one country is emerging as the winner.
Africa's relationship with China was in the spotlight this week as Senegal hosted the 2021 Forum on China-Africa Cooperation. A number of new investment deals were announced, and Beijing promised 1 billion COVID vaccines for Africa. Now, China is the continent's largest trading partner, but Africa exports way less to China than China exports to Africa.
And this is Africa, a continent of 54 sovereign states, 17% of the world's population, 9.6% of the global oil output, 90% of the world's platinum supply, 90% of the world's cobalt supply, half of the world's gold supply, 2/3 of the world's manganese, 35% of the world's uranium, 75% of the world's coltan, and 54 votes in the United Nations General Assembly.
This is what makes Africa so attractive and make the continent a battleground for global power. There are numerous funds, investments, infrastructure, military power, diplomacy, soft power, trade, geopolitical influence. Every country has its own interest in Africa. The European Union has pledged more than $54 billion in sustainable investment in Africa. What does the EU want? Access to the African market of 1.3 billion people. Brussels has negotiated free trade agreements with at least 40 African countries. But does this ensure a balanced two-way trade? No country has a bigger interest in Africa than China. China is funding 1 in 5 infrastructure projects in Africa. It is building 1 in every 3 projects in Africa. Africa has an infrastructure deficit and China has a signed checkbook. Starting in 2005, China has invested at least $2 trillion in Africa. Beijing has built the African Union headquarters in Addis Ababa. What does the China get in return? A lot. Geopolitical influence, to start with. Beijing is selling its culture, its currency in Guinea-Bissau. Exit signs are written in Mangori. China has established at least 50 conscious institutions across 33 countries. Several African countries use Chinese currencies.
Establishment of the Chinese military base in Djibouti was a decision made by the two countries after friendly negotiations and accords with the common interests of the people from both sides.
The base also has the capacity to accommodate 10,000 troops. Djibouti connects the Mediterranean Sea to the Indian Ocean via the Suez Canal. China also gets a market to dump its goods. China is Africa's largest trading partner. Chinese trade has increased 40-fold in the last 2 decades. At least 10,000 Chinese firms operate in Africa. This is according to the market research. Africa has resources and China has access. Do you know 70% of China investment in Africa are in the mining sector? And finally, it gets to debt trap Africa. But what people don't know is China is not Africa's largest investor. The biggest and the largest African investor is the United States. The United States accounts for $54 billion of FDI stocks. There are 600 American companies operating in South Africa alone. For the longest time, Africa was nothing but a war zone for Washington. It has over 7,000 troops across 13 African countries: Burkina Faso, Cameroon, Central African Republic, Chad, Congo, Kenya, Libya, Mali, South Sudan, Somalia. For the US, Africa was just a continent for counter-terrorism operation. But what happened then? Why is the US suddenly interested in Africa? The answer is this. For the US, Africa is now a new front to take on China.
The United States wants to strengthen our partnerships across Africa in ways that serve your interests, our interests, and the interests of people worldwide, whose lives and futures depend in part on what we can achieve together.
And Washington, D.C. is now fighting it out for power and influence.
An article on the US State Department website reads, and I quote, "Africa is the continent of the future. Thus, we need to make the most of its potential. By 2050, its population will more than double to 2.2 billion people, with over 60% under the age of 25.
If in the 90s Africa was colonized by force or with force, in the 20s it will be trapped by loans. China accounts for 14% of sub-Sahara debt. In Kenya, the volume of Chinese loan is 6 times that of France, which is the country's second largest creditor. And Sri Lanka can tell you what happened when China's loans are not paid. China is looking to capture Africa. It has a strong diaspora. It is spending big money in selling its movies, culture, and currency. China extracts raw materials in Africa and manufacture its products here in Africa with Africans and sell it back to Africans. In the 19th century, the rivalry between Britain and France fueled African colonialism. In the 21st century, the trade war between the United States and China is coming in the same direction, just like the 19th century. There are numerous countries in this scramble for Africa, and just like the 19th century, there is nothing in for Africa.